And we are live. Welcome, everyone. First of all, this channel is proudly partnered with the What the Funk shop. Please check out their store for all sorts of products. They have dice, miniatures, game master screens, home decorations, and many other things. You will find the link in the description and in the pinned comment. And make sure that you use my code for a special discount. This is your host, Abraham L. Jaguar. And today, we are talking about diceless tabletop RPGs. I am also going to talk about what exactly is wrong with archetypes in tabletop RPGs and video games. Let me do a sound check real quick. Please check out their store for all sorts of products. They have dice, miniatures, game master screens, home decorations, and many other things. Sounds pretty decent. Let's wait until more people come to this live stream. Since I had to make a few changes in schedule, I hope people will be able to attend this live stream. So yes, today we're going to understand exactly how to play diceless tabletop RPGs and what is going on with archetypes in current fiction, specifically in entertainment. Let's start talking about diceless systems. I personally think that diceless role-playing games are the easiest way to get someone into tabletop RPGs because unlike many other role-playing games, rather, unlike many other games, board games, war games, etc., in tabletop RPGs, you actually get to roleplay. You get to play a role. So, diceless tabletop RPGs put great emphasis or focus on describing your actions, on the part of the game master presenting the game world, on the part of the players describing the actions of the characters as they interact with that game world. But because you don't have dice or cards or any other sort of tool. You don't have tools. You could also call them tool-less because you have no tools. Tool-less, no dice, no cards, no nothing. So you focus completely on describing your actions. And I'm going to give you an example here. Let's see if I can get that into focus. Here we go. This is the Smash. This is an almost diceless tabletop RPG. The core of the system is completely diceless, but depending on the superheroic characters, the superheroic archetypes that you decide to play as, then you may end up rolling some dice, but most of the experience is diceless. So how do you go about playing diceless tabletop RPGs? It's very simple. All of the characters, and even sometimes the objects, anything that you can interact with in the game world, has some sort of value, a numerical value, and you are constantly comparing your own values, your strength, your dexterity, intelligence, any sort of value that is handled in such a game with the values of the objects, the enemies, the situations, the tests, the checks. So it's not that different from more conventional tabletop RPG experiences. In your typical any game, a dice pool game, a D20 based system, any sort of game that uses dice, you make your roll, you add a few modifiers, and you see if you manage to hit that target number or difficulty number or whatever. But when it comes to diceless, you describe your actions, you inform the value of your action, the sort of power attack attribute that you are using. When it comes to those tests, you inform that to the game master, and the game master will then measure your value against the number, the difficulty of the object, the test, the check, etc. So it's all quite simple. In the case of Smash, let's go to the page where they describe the system, character creation, combat mechanics. In a combat scene, each character will get to take turns and make moves to represent their attacks, movement, and other tasks they attempt, as they contribute to the fight in some way. So you determine your turn. During a combat scene, each player character and enemy character gets to act. At the start of the round, each character can choose what initiative they act upon, simply choosing a number between 1 and their initiative stat. So you see, it is also very quickly, everything proceeds quickly, not because you're not rolling dice, you're not drawing cards. You already know the number. But depending on the description of your action, perhaps that value could go up or down. Those are the modifiers. It's all based on context. So once you get to take a move, let's say that you want to attack someone. You describe your attack. Of course, if you are fighting a brick sort of enemy like a supervillain, one of those hulking brutes, and you just go at it without targeting a weak spot, your value, let's say that you have some sort of value of 4 in your attack. Your attack value is 4. So you make your attack, it remains the same, 4. And perhaps the enemy has a resistance of 6, just to give you an example that could apply to any tabletop RPG that is diceless. You won't be able to score a hit. But what if you inform the game master, the typical ninja scroll type of situation, that you are throwing a weapon, a shuriken, a kunai, a knife at the eye of the opponent? That's a very vulnerable area in the anime Ninja Scroll in the original video animation. There is this demon that turns his body to stone or rock. So the main character throws kunai. If I remember correctly, a kunai, like one of those small daggers, into the eye of the enemy. If you had a combat value of 4 in your attack in any diceless system, that would definitely go up to 6, perhaps 7, because the eye is such a vulnerable area. So your attack would be successful. So when it comes to diceless tabletop RPGs, it's all about measuring a particular value or number against a specific difficulty number, and as a value that you need to beat or that you need to roll over. But in this case, you're not rolling over; you're just comparing the values. And there are so many other diceless systems, and some of them have very interesting nuances. For example, let me open this document. You won't see it on screen because I don't have it set up like that. But we have Golden Sky Stories, which is an anime-style tabletop RPG, very much in the lines of those cutesy anime where you have like anthropomorphic animals that look cuddly and cute and nice. So in Golden Sky Stories, your checks work exactly the same. You have attributes, you have numeric values, but if you want your action to be successful, then you need to spend some resources, some points to raise the value of that action or activate a power. In other words, it's also about resource management. You don't have physical tools, but you do have those abstract values to serve sort of currency and meta currency. Another example, soccer. This role playing game, I've always wanted to play it, never played this one. But it's a very similar system. Let me go to the overcoming challenges, page 48. Overcoming challenges. In a role playing game, it is possible to try anything. However, most actions can either be regarded as obvious or automatically successful because Stalker, in this case, the character that you are role playing as the Stalker, has skills or abilities that fit the situation. However, when the Stalker attempts something unusual, difficult, and or dangerous, there is always the possibility of failure. This is determined by the game master according to certain guidelines. The character's abilities and the player's own actions have a pivotal role. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. If the task is easy, merely having the right ability is sufficient. But if the character tries to do something special, his own actions and the player's narration or description of the situation are also worth spending some effort. Here is the currency. Your effort can actually allow you To be successful, even though your normal values or attributes, the numerical numbers, they could not be up to the task. So diceless systems, incredibly easy to play, and the perfect way, in my opinion, the perfect way to get people into tabletop role-playing games. Because some people, and I hope this is not an attack against someone specific. One of my viewers, Entropino, hello Entropino, if you're watching this video, he said that he usually teaches people how to play tabletop RPGs as a board game, and I've heard this so many times. I would disagree with that. If you teach someone how to play tabletop RPGs as board games, they forget the roleplay completely. They completely forget the roleplay. And they play a board game with a conversation or a board game telling a story. Imagine someone that has never played games before, not a single game before. If you teach that person a diceless system, it is so easy. You tell the person, I am going to be presenting a situation to you, and you describe how you take action within that situation. As simple as that. The perfect way to get non gamers into tabletop role playing games in a diceless way. You can also do this using tools, of course. The only difference is that now the person needs to roll the dice or draw a card or whatever mechanism you are employing, or flip a coin. You also have games that flip coins. Very easy to teach. Describe your actions. That's it. You don't need to be an actor. You don't need to be a storyteller. You don't need to be anything of those things. None of those things. Now, unless there are any questions, I am moving on to the next topic, which is the problem with modern archetypes in video games and tabletop role-playing games. But of course, if during my conversation, my exposition of modern archetypes, you have some questions about diceless systems, sure, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure before moving on to the next topic. So, what is the problem with modern archetypes in video games and tabletop RPGs or in fiction in general? An archetype is a powerful expression, almost completely divorced from all sorts of cliches. You don't have stereotypes in tabletop RPGs, in video games. You have archetypes. Usually, when a game has too many stereotypes, it ends up being pretty bad because stereotypes are predictable and they are not powerful. They are not powerful in their expression. Some people could consider archetypes to be paragons, exemplars of something. If you call something an archetype, it's like the best of the best, right? But sometimes the best of the best is actually the worst of the worst. Let me give you an example. Hugel from Dying Earth. For those of you that do not know, Hugel, a beloved character, beloved scoundrel, the role model for the typical rogue that you could have seen, perhaps even bards in many tabletop RPGs. He's not a musician, but he's certainly a con artist, a performer, an artist of sorts. Excuse me. Hugel has so many flaws. Hugel is an extremely flawed character with only a few virtues or advantages. Hugel is constantly tricking others, deceiving others. You could say that is one of his virtues, of his abilities, because it allows him to survive in the world of the dying earth. But at the same time, he is prey to his own lust, to his own greed, not so much as the other characters in the Dying Earth series, but he's still subject to his own flaws. And he oftentimes ends up tricked. As much as he tricks others, he also ends up deceived. He suffers for it quite badly throughout the entire saga. Usual Saga and other parts of the Dying Earth series. So as you can see, Kujol is an archetype of the scoundrel, of the flawed scoundrel in modern tabletop RPGs and video games. You have many flawed characters, but their flaws are painted as something positive. And that's when they start to fall into stereotypes and when the series that they inhabit, the world that they inhabit, ends up failing. And a perfect example, a lot of you perhaps already know about this, those of you that are into video games, Marvel Rivals. So many people, there are so many videos right now in YouTube saying, how come the Chinese, it's so great at representing Marvel superheroes, unlike the agenda that they are pushing in the West? That's because the agenda, the flawed characters that they are pushing in the West, the flaws are painted as something even desirable, something that you should have. But no, a flaw is a flaw is a flaw. A flaw is always something that you do not want to have. It's important to accept reality. We are all flawed, of course, but with our flaws, even we have, although we have our flaws, we try to work to the best of our abilities with those flaws. A perfect example, one of my favorite Lovecraftian characters, Henry Armitage. Professor Henry Armitage. He's a very old man, definitely not very strong. He's aging, he has terrible sight, he is bald, he is probably not in the best of physical conditions. But despite all of his flaws, he reads the Necronomicon, manages to survive the madness that infects people that read the Necronomicon. He obtains valuable information from the Necronomicon. He goes into the countryside, treks quite a bit of distance in order to confront the Dunwich Horror. Bit of spoiler, right? But he's one of the people that confronted the Dunwich Horror. And in order to avoid the major spoiler, I would say that he did pretty good, all things considered. That's a perfect example of a flawed character, someone that is has several disadvantages, in his case, physical disadvantages, but he does his best to work with those flaws. In many modern so-called archetypes in video games, tabletop RPGs, the character suffers from so many flaws, and instead of using those flaws as challenges to overcome, or perhaps even for self-improvement, they are painted in a positive light. So many people did the comparison. They compared Marvel Rivals with the failure that is Concord. Concord was an absolute failure. And some even compare it to Overwatch and whatnot. In Concord, the characters there were quite aberrant in that they were expressing a political message. They were not designed with the intent of actually representing a dark type of expressing that character working with his or her flaws. But Marvel Rivals actually focuses on the strength of those superheroes and villains. You're not going to have a Wolverine that is completely overweight because he wouldn't be as agile and it wouldn't make sense with his mutant powers, his background, his training, etc. But what if in another game you were to have flawed characters that those flaws actually had an impact on gameplay? Let me give you an example. Was it Rogue Legacy? Give me a few moments while I look uh, for the name of the game. I think it's Rogue Legacy. Rogue Legacy. Was it? Yes, Rogue Legacy. I don't know if you have played that game, but it's great in the sense that you have this family line, these descendants of warriors. They are confronting a great evil, but their family tree, let's say that it is not very healthy. They are born with all sorts of mental and physical problems. And when you start the game, you actually go through the levels dealing with those disadvantages. You actually can suffer from eye problems, from eyesight problems in the game, your attacks, the way that your speed, if I remember correctly, you end up playing as characters that have so many physical and mental disadvantages, and all of that impacts gameplay. That has a direct impact on gameplay. So when it comes to tabletop RPGs, that is why you have those character flaws that in point by systems. Oh, do you want to take that you have blood pressure problems, or um, you stutter when you speak, or you have bad eyesight, or whatever, and they give you points for taking that flaw. They give you points because they're going to make the game a bit more difficult. So you have extra points to spend in other things because people usually work with other advantages or aspects of themselves in order to make up for their flaws. So let's say that someone is not very physically agile and whatnot, but that person is very intelligent, has the resources, right? Then you're going to build like an Iron Man type of suit, or a vehicle or exoskeleton or something, perhaps in a sci-fi game, that will make it up for those flaws. In modern archetypes, they forget that the flaws that you have, they are supposed to represent challenges to be overcome, or even to work with those challenges, those disadvantages. But they present so many characters that in real life, if you actually experience real life, you will see that many of the people that suffer those sorts of handicaps, they suffer from all sorts of hardships, mentally and physically. Maybe that person has anxiety related to some flaw. Maybe this other person is insecure related to some other flaw. Some people are stronger than others. Some people are faster than others. Some people are more graceful than others, and none of that is highlighted in the archetypes. When it comes to modern archetypes, they try to push those things aside. But thankfully, as I have said, people have become aware of this, and they start to bring out video games, tabletop RPGs that actually highlight these overcoming those challenges. Going back to Marvel Rivals, it was so successful when compared to Concord because you actually have superheroes and supervillains that show off their powers, that look sexy, that look pretty, etc. Anime, anime and manga, specifically moe anime and manga. So many of those artistic expressions, so much of that artistic expression has characters. Just look at my let's see, where is the over here, over here. I was getting confused with the camera. This banner over here of Raiden Shogun. She's like a pretty like a waifu, no, a pretty waifu. She has been designed or painted in the style of many anime and manga characters. You only have the mouth, the eyes, the nose, but no other features on the face, just very minor. Some of these anime characters and manga characters, they have smaller eyes, bigger eyes. Their nose could be like a vertical line. Some others have like a little dot. Their mouths sometimes are a bit more detailed. Some of them only have like a line. Some others you can see the way that the line over the lips is delineated or drawn, and your brain completes the rest. And that's why anime and manga characters are usually considered pretty by many people or aesthetically pleasing because they don't have the features that we have, right? For example, in my case, look at the size of my nose, of my, how would you say, these lines close to my mouth, the under my eyelids. Those are defining characteristics. So when you look at those anime and manga characters, those archetypical expressions, your brain finishes the rest of the face, completes the rest of the face as a sort of gestalt effect. I think that's the way to apply it, a gestalt effect. And you end up looking at the ideal face according to your own perception. So this is by intent, and that's a perfect example of how archetypes are shaped visually. The face that you look at in anime and manga, it looks so simple, but your own brain is filling up the rest of the features. So yes, I hope uh, this little talk about diceless tabletop RPGs and um, modern archetypes, what is wrong in how they are not expressing the true nature of an archetype is that despite the flaws, the disadvantages, you work with what you have in tabletop RPGs, in video games. Sometimes when you are creating your character, you assign points to strength, dexterity, charisma, your skills, your powers, but you're going to be lacking in other areas. That's what makes an archetype unique. You work with those things, and the archetype, even in other more passive forms of entertainment, like movies, comic books, novels, they work with what they have, and what it makes it what that's what actually makes the archetype an archetype instead of a stereotype. Um, in case you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be waiting for a minute. In case you have some questions about diceless tabletop RPGs or archetypes, video games, or tabletop RPGs as well. Well, it seems like there aren't any questions. I think we're going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for watching this live stream where I talk about diceless RPGs and the problem with modern archetypes. Either way, if you have any other questions that you think about later on, you can write them down in the comments section below. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. If you wish to further support the channel, take a look at the information in the description, the pinned comment, like, subscribe, you can use the super thanks button, you can join as a channel member, etc. etc. Thank you as always for watching my videos, and have a great rest of your night, day, wherever you are. See you later.